In section 4.2 for question number 3, it asks us to state the domain and the range, and then wants us to determine whether or not this relation is a function. So if you recall, the domain is your x values, and you just list them. Make sure you have the squiggly brackets. You list them with commas in between. You do not have to list them in order from least to greatest. You do the same thing for your range, but your range, you list your y values. So my y values are 4, 2, 3, and 2. But if a number repeats, you only have to write it once. Now, is the relation a function? Explain. In order for this to be a function, all your x values have to be different numbers. And notice I have a -4, a 1, 0, and a 3. So since they are all different, then yes, this is a function. Yes, all x values are different. If you flip it over to the back for section 4.2, it's asking you to map the domain and range for the set of points below. So in order to map, you take your values and you separate the x values into the first box and you separate the y values into the second box. The only stipulation is that the values do have to be in order from least to greatest. So these are my x values and these ones are my y values. If I list my x values from least to greatest, that gives me a -5, a -3, and a -2. Or if I list my y values in order from least to greatest, it's 2, 3, and 4. When you map, you draw arrows or lines connecting your x to your y. So -5 gets drawn to +3. -3 gets drawn to 4. -2 gets drawn to 2. And -5 gets drawn to 4 as well. Okay. Does the map represent a function? Well, remember, in order for it to be a function, all the x values have to be different. So I have -5, -3, -2, and -5. Since all these numbers are not different from one another, this is not a function. Not all x values are different. In section 5, it wants us to use the vertical line test to determine if the relation graphs below are functions. Well, if you recall, the vertical line test says to draw a vertical line on your graph. And you could draw it anywhere. If the vertical line passes through your curve or your graph one time, then it passes the vertical line test and it's a function. So notice how when I drew my vertical line, it passed through the curve one time. So yes, this passes, and yes, it's a function. If I draw a vertical line for graph B, my green pen only touched the curve at one spot, so it passed, which means yes, it's a function. If I draw a vertical line for graph C, notice how my vertical line hit the curve at 2 spots, which means it does not pass the vertical line test and it is not a function.